Hello everyone, Santia here with more Let's Make a Game Astral Collision. There have been a number of different things that I've done in the intervening period o' time. One of them that you can see right here on the screen is I changed this to be the tent icon, like a tent instead of a giant tree. It just made a heck of a lot more sense with what was going on there. And let's actually talk about that for a moment. So, here it is, the abandoned hunter's camp. I've changed the geography here. I've added this enemy right here, this slime thing wandering around. We'll talk about that in a moment. There's some chests that I've added. Oh, and also I just replaced this whole area over here with like a mountain geometry rather than forest because it was making more sense to do that. I might take out this tree as well. This tree has proven to be, you know, let's just do that right now. Whoops, not that part. Let's just take out this tree. That tree has been annoying. It gets in the way of moving. So I'm just going to do that. Now you can actually get around this tent and around this backside area here. There's also, you might notice, a cave over here. This door is locked. I have some stuff going on with this event to be like, hey, if you have the camp key, you can unlock it and it opens and then it just stays unlocked. Otherwise, it is locked. That goes into a cave that literally nothing happens in this cave yet. It is just a cave. There's some water features and other things and some holes and stuff blocking some of the paths. I haven't filled this in with anything. There's no enemies or anything, but I've added this to put stuff in. This guy right here is part of a quest chain, and I need to modify it because it is not entirely working properly. But if you Ooze Posse Slain is on, if you beat the Ooze Posse, which is new enemy troop, that's just one of several types of ooze. I'll talk about this in a moment, but let's keep on track for a bit here. So Ooze Posse right here is just a group of oozes that if you defeat, you complete the quest. So let's talk about quests. I have added a quest system. I wanted the ability to have quests. I figured out how I was going to do it. The answer is with items. So right up here is the test quest. This is kind of the formatting for a quest. You'll see it's a hidden item B. It is given by somebody. It has some reward, has a name, and then there's some stuff going over here in the note field. This is important. This is off the bottom. That's relevant as well. This is to give some width indication. I'll talk about what's going on there in a moment, but let's look at Ooze Posse. So this is a quest. So quests are going to come in 3 flavors. There's minor side quests, which I'm going to use the bronze star for, major side quests, which I'm going to use the silver star for, and primary quests, which I'm going to use the gold star for. But see, right here, this quest is given by the Hunter in Kaladin. It rewards the camp key and 100 experience points, and here's the description for it. A posse of oozes have taken over the old hunter's camp to the northwest of Kaladin. If you clear them out, the hunter has agreed to give you the key to the cave at the back of the camp. And then here's the camp key that opens that area up. Then there's this medical supplies and this pick up medical supplies quest. Again, this is a quest because it's a hidden item B and all that sort of stuff. Description for it over here and who gave it and your reward is right there. So I've been in the early stages of kind of fleshing stuff out with quests. I, in fact, have, if we go over to our handy-dandy note document, I made the technical way of doing quests, which we'll talk about second, but I did that first, and then I realized, oh, wait, what am I actually making for quests? So I wanted to plot out some, like, okay, what am I doing with quests? So I have different purposes for quests, so things like getting the player resources, experience, money, consumables, getting them to new locations. So this is something that I've observed actually a lot with some of the Guild Wars 1 streaming that I've been doing, particularly the slow playthrough, which you can find elsewhere on this channel. And one of the things that I observed with my slow prophecies playthrough is that quests come in a couple of varieties, and one of the things that they do is they give you a quest, which, I mean, it does some stuff, it does some world-building stuff. Quests are always doing some amount of world-building. They're telling some amount of side stories. It just depends upon how much you're actually fleshing that out in any sort of meaningful way. But they have a bunch of quests that the purpose basically seems to be to say, hey, go to this outpost. We want to make sure you know this outpost exists, and so we're going to direct you there. And there can be a lot of different reasons why you want to do that, but this is something that you can do of like direct the player to new locations that maybe they weren't aware of or weren't paying attention to or whatever. So that's certainly something that some of these quests can do. In fact, the quest here, the medical supplies quest, directs you to Kasdan's hut in the woods, which is useful to inform the player about because there's a bunch of skills there. So I do want to direct the player to that location. So you make it relevant to the player by directing them there. And then, of course, advancing the plot, guiding the player through the story is also an important thing to do, as well as telling side stories and world building. One of the things that's going on with the world building angle, actually, as I was making these two quests, I had some ideas of like, okay, the people here, they pay for quests with bounty slips typically. That's what adventurers are looking for because that's how they advance in their rank. So the thing is, you don't want adventurers to buy bounty slips. So you also don't want pre-adventurers to buy bounty slips. Like somebody's like, oh, I'm just a civilian. I don't have an adventurer's card. And so it's like, you don't have an adventurer's card. Okay, how about we take you and not have you, like if somebody's like just about to become an adventurer, they shouldn't just be able to buy up a bunch of bounty slips, become an adventurer, and then turn in these bounty slips that they bought in order to be able to like massively rank up all at once, right? That's cheating the system. So if we actually go to the NPC right here, I've changed this person's dialogue to say, if you're looking to purchase bounty slips, you're clearly far too powerful to qualify for such a purpose. Why don't you become a member of the Adventurers Guild instead? So basically, there's this kind of notion that people who are too strong can't buy bounty slips because otherwise they could try to cheat the system. So there's some of that going on. In fact, this Hunter in Caledon, if I go over to the Hunter's home, this guy right here, and I've added quest markers. We'll talk about those. This is pretty straightforward. This is just, there's a spinning version for when they have a quest to take and a bouncing queue version for, queue for quest, for when they are interactable relating to a quest, I guess is the best way to phrase that. And it just follows this custom route of like turning at a certain rate. Or this one, which also needs to have this switch of nighttime on. Oh yeah, this needs to have switch nighttime as well. This was showing up at night that I saw in my most recent playtest, and that was no good. But this has a slightly different route in terms of its pacing, but you get the general gist of it. We'll show that off. Probably not off this guy. But I had to add a bunch of stuff here for this guy to like do the quest dialogue. So if you talk to him again with the thing, he'll do it and whatever. I'm not going to go over the specific details because you can view those in the most recent playtest. I am going to decrease the rate of doing playtests just because I'm kind of dialed in like the combat systems to where they're in a roughly good place, and so I'm going to be focusing a lot more on making content, and that just, it takes longer to make content than it does to like experience it, if that makes sense. So the big sweeping changes that I had been doing to like combat balance and stuff, just large systemic changes, are mostly behind me at this point. As far as I'm aware, they should all be behind me, and it's just tweaking like individual skills and enemies and stuff rather than like systemic changes. So what that means is I don't, like, a weekly playtest is a little bit too frequent for how often I need to do those. So I'm just going to slow down the cadence for those. If you do want to be notified or be let know when those are happening, there should be a link to my Discord server in the description. And I have an Astral Collision channel there that I will make mention of in there when I'm going to be doing playtests, I think. So, as well as just like small updates here and there of what's going on. But anyway, so I added a quest there, and this was the first quest I implemented. But this guy is not, he's too good to be an adventurer, or like to be able to purchase bounty slips, but not quite good enough to be a proper adventurer. So he's kind of in a difficult place. He has a hard time finding any adventurers who would be interested in taking his quest up. So he has his whole story there. And then I also added over here this guy who also has a quest. This is the guy with the medical supplies quest. And this kind of like highlights the other thing that's going on with some of the world building right now, which is that all of these adventurers are leaving Kendra to go ply their trade in the other worlds. Not necessarily successfully, but they are trying to do it. So there's kind of been a sudden dearth of adventurers, which has just disrupted the normal structure of society because you suddenly have a supply-demand issue, where before all the systems were kind of made to kind of accommodate the supply of adventurers that was around, and suddenly without them, the demand for adventurer services is no longer kind of matching the supply of adventurers. So it's just making everything kind of not work properly. So you can kind of see some of that, where this guy says, like, I'd normally offer only 1 bounty slip for it, but given how things have been lately, I'm willing to offer 5 bounty slips for somebody to go pick up the medical supplies from Kazan. It's not worth a lot. It's just a simple courier thing, but, it's 5 bounty slips is quite a market increase. And it says it's not safe for an ordinary traveler to go to Kazan, which is accurate because you might be ambushed by monsters. So there's kind of like this side plot of or side state of the world of there aren't enough adventurers for all the things that people want adventurers to do for them, and things along those lines. And there's some other thing connected to that. Oh yeah, that the Adventurers Guild is maybe like thinking that everything's catering to adventurers, so they're maybe not thinking about the medical supplies here are not supplies that you yourself would purchase or an adventurer would purchase. They're just like simple bandages and ointments and stuff for civilians that are not adventurers that don't necessarily want to pay the price for a healing potion to heal a simple scrape, right? So they're going to get cheaper supplies that you don't really have much use for. But it's like, hey, we need an adventurer to go pick it up from Kasdan, who's the guy who ordinarily makes this. And like normally it's no big deal to go pick it up, but and to like a bounty slip to go pick it up. But with what's going on with the few adventurers is like, and so he's entered his request into the queue of quests. And you can see that there's a whole chain of things here. But he's entered it into the queue for quests, but it's like not coming up like ever. And he needs the supplies because they're running out, and people need them. They need to be able to purchase their bandages and healing ointments and stuff. So there's a bit of a bit of world building stuff that I have had to figure out with this, and I'm just working on my processes as well. But my goal is kind of like flesh stuff out a bit more. Other things in that vein of fleshing stuff out a bit more, I've finally started putting some buildings in Sandy March. So this area was just green fields. Now there's some buildings. There's a small thing of some money over here. And there's the guild house and inn. I've added a clock thing here, which uses a common event with what time is it. I'll talk about that in a bit. But this is just like, okay, here's a place where you can go interact with things. I also want to make sure that things are like generally interactable so that you can expect to do it. So I want to live up to those expectations. And then there's like this tavern that doesn't have anything going on in it just yet. But I've started fleshing this out a little bit. I want to begin really like filling out all of these towns and things. Like Portis down here. That's like empty and shouldn't be, but kind of needs to be for the moment because I haven't just taken the time to fill it out. So yeah, with a lot of the big combat systems now in place, it's just going to be focusing on making content a lot. I know I'm kind of repeating myself, but that's kind of where things are at for the moment. So those are some of the big things over on this end. So let's talk a little bit about something else. I did tweak. This guy's skill was target weakness, which was just an auto crit. I decided I wanted to do something a bit different, so now it's just a high accuracy attack that if it's a critical hit, it lowers the enemy's dexterity and strength by 1 stage for 10 turns. So that's what this does now. It's slow for what it's worth because he's taking his time to like properly target, but I've played with it a bit in the thing, and it seems to be fine. So, I don't know. I don't have much more to say about it than that. I will be tweaking stuff over time. So let's talk about... Let's show some of the... Yes, I know. Let's show some of these quest things. Let's see. You should be far enough to be able to access it, but not have done them yet. Oh, yeah, you're easily far enough. Okay. I have moved when you get the boat to be later. It was rank 2. I've moved it to rank 3 because I want to create enough space that you want to actually do quests to get bounty slips. And at rank 2, you only need 60 slips, which is not bad to get from killing enemies. That's like not that many fights. That's like 15 battles, 15, 20 battles, somewhere in there on average, probably. Which I think we can all agree is maybe not quite enough battles to like make it encourage you to go do side quests. So it's 5 times every time you go up. So it starts at 10 and then it's 5 times that to get to 50. So that's why it's 60 to get to rank 2. And then it's 5 times 50 again. So it's 250 slips to get to rank 3 from rank 2. So that's a total of 310, which is going to slow it down dramatically, but also actually encourage you to spend some time on Kendra and give you a chance to actually like explore the southern parts of Kendra and level up and such as well. So we'll see if that's a good spot, or like that's going to be something that I'm going to have to actually like playtest once I've gotten enough content there to actually have something to playtest. But enough of that. Let's go look at some of this quest stuff. Actually, do I have the... No, this character actually can't show it because I don't have the quest log on this character. Well, I can show you a little bit, I guess. So if I go over here, you can see the guy with the thing spinning over him. And that's what that looks like. Here, let's go actually talk to him. It's not the best contrast against the grass, but green is the color that I decided it should be. I don't know. Maybe it should be red. But red feels angry. And then he has this whole dialogue about being stuff. And then you don't get a choice of whether or not to take quests. You do get to choose not to do them if you don't want to. And so he gives the thing, and now it swaps to this style where the queue is now bouncing up and down. Here, if I stand here, it'll help contrast it a little bit. So you can now see, like, this is the interact about quest. These are slightly translucent, so you can kind of see my cape through the marker. So yeah, that's how that works. This character, like I said, does not have the quest log, or I would be able to show it to you. These characters do, but they are... It would take a long time to kind of get the quest log on a new character. It looks like this. So the name of the quest goes over here along with its icon. The description in the standard description box. So if I bring this up, items like this right here will show up here, and then the note field right here is actually put in over here. So whatever's in the note field gets put into this box, and that's where the... Like if we look at the test quest over here, this line shows you how wide you can be. So if you go any wider than that, it's going to start getting cut off. And this shows you how far down it goes. So if you go below that, it's going to get cut off on the bottom. So that's what those markers are about, is just giving some guidelines when doing that. So that's the quest log. I'm just not in a... Woo. I accidentally resized this, and now everything's wonky. Okay, whatever. That'll work. So that gives you a sense of how the quest log looks. It looks, I mean, you get a better sense when there's actually stuff in it. But you can go see that in the playtest. There's a link in the description to the most recent playtest where you can actually see that properly. I don't want to take the time to get a character up to the point where I can go do that. So let's talk about how the quest log itself actually works. So I just made a quest log thing here. I do get a parameter. This is to determine which hidden item is being used for the quest log. It's going to be either hidden item A or hidden item B. I'm using hidden item B because hidden item A I'm using for the bestiary. And then you just bring up the quest log with the quest log command. So now we're talking about the scene. It's a very simple scene overall. There is a quest list, which is just a variant on an item list. There is the help window, which is just the standard help window. It's basically kind of like you're looking at the inventory, except the inventory list of items has been moved over to the side, and the bulk of that area is now taken up with the note field. This description window is taken from the journal plugin that I did. So this journal plugin is far more complicated. But I have a description down here somewhere. Yeah, description display. So it's this window right here, this description display. Yeah, and it has a darker opacity here to make it more legible. And this just displays whatever information you give it. And so the description display, I just use that window. I could use a simpler version than that if I wanted to, but I already had it, so I was just going to use it. And then I just activate the quest list and select the first item. And I just close the scene if you hit either spacebar for OK or escape for cancel. That's what goes on there. Yeah, it sets up the help window and all that good stuff. The quest list itself is pretty straightforward. The big thing that it does is it includes items if they are of the proper type of hidden item. And then it includes it. And that's kind of the notable thing about it, other than the update. This draw item is just whatever. I don't know. I copied and pasted some stuff and then have modified things. So update right here updates the window selectable because that's what it is. It's an item list. And this is the description window. Again, I copied and pasted this off of a different thing, so because it was easier. I don't remember which one offhand. And then the current entry, it just grabs that, and if it's there, it just sets the text and the thing to be the notes. So like you can see, it's just grabbing the item. It's just like, here, shove the note field over here. So it's pretty straightforward as far as like UI is concerned in this system. I added a thing to the day-night cycle to get the time of day. This gets a percentage of the time through like midday, evening, night, or morning. I guess I can show that. I talked about it. So the way that interfaces with things, that's a common event over here. What time is it? It just grabs the return from that function and just chucks it into a variable. These variables can hold anything. They don't have to hold numbers. But if you want them to hold non-numbers, you need to use the scripting. But then you can just like, hey, output it. Whatever's in variable 1, just print it here. And it's like, okay, it doesn't care what it is. So in-game, yes, I mucked about with one of those menus. So it's like, do you want to save? This is fine. There's only one spot where I'm doing anything with that right now, which is the in over here. I'm going to be adding it to like all the clocks. But if I interact with this, it's like, it's 25% of the way through the night. I'm doing it this way. It's a little bit weird. If I run back and forth, it will advance it a bit, and it'll be like, it's now 27% of the way through the night. Or I can just rest here and be like, I'll make it morning. No. And it'll be like, it's 8% of the way through the morning. So we don't usually do time that way, but timed events are kind of like, you care about what the time of day it is and then how far you are through the time of the day, and trying to convert this into something that resembles our clock system is pretty, I've shown you what I need to of that, pretty non-trivial. So let's explain a little bit. Days currently, the daytime lasts 1,000 steps effectively. You can kind of think of this as 1,000 steps. For the overworld, it's 30 30 advancement units per step, and for the within like town places or whatever, it's 1. Evening is 100, night is another 1,000, morning is another 100. These don't really translate into minutes or hours very cleanly. I could adjust stuff to be like, it takes you a minute to do a step, or whatever sense that would make, and kind of like calibrate the links to these things to try to be approximately accurate to what we have in the real world. With the giant, like, sometimes the daytime is shorter and sometimes it's longer because we have... I'm not worrying about all of those, like where you are in the hemisphere details or anything like that. That would be an absolute nightmare. So this is a very approximated like day-night cycle. And it doesn't cleanly translate to like a 24-hour system or something like that. You can see that with this, like, daylight is 1,200 in length and nighttime is just 1,000, so it's slightly different. I could tweak these if I wanted to, but I'm okay with them where they're at. So that's just the values that I'm using for those, and like you could enter in anything. So I'd have to do a bunch of like math to figure out how to calibrate noon is at this point in time, and then this amount represents this time, and just like I don't want to bother with that, so it's just easier to give you the information that you care about anyway, which is it's this time, or it's this percentage of the way through this time. If people think that's way too weird and tacky, I could potentially try to figure out how to adjust the system, but there's like so many little quirks to this. First of all, it starts in the day, not at morning. And besides, midnight is 00 anyway. And then I'd have to go halfway through this is noon, which I can do. Okay, when are we 50% through of the day? That's corresponds to noon. But then I have to figure out like doing stuff for the day cycle count. Basically what I'm saying is like, is it doable? Yes. Is it complicated? Also yes. Is it worth it? I don't know that it is. So I'm just kind of keeping things a weird abstract percentage of the way through this part at the time of the day. If I do want to update it later, it's not like I update this and I'm not going to have to update all the clocks because they all filter through the same system. So, but for now, this is how things are set up. Yeah, that's how things are set up right now. Okay. There's probably been a few things I've done AC modifications. I don't remember if I talked about this last... Yeah, I did. I talked about the adjustments I made to... Because I had the change to speed, how I was doing stuff with that. I talked about that last time, though. I changed it to be just your, like, raw attack speed times your TP rate stuff, instead of having a hard figure here and adding that onto it, and just to try to kind of make it a little bit more flex or whatever, I don't know. Or less. Have your speeds kind of scale a bit more. Okay, I think a lot of this stuff I've already talked about, so let's go down here. HP gauges we've discussed. Yeah, so I adjusted the effectiveness things to be reduced effectiveness or amplified effectiveness, and it just gives this message if you're below 0.8 or equal to it, and if you're above or equal to 1.2. So this is 80%. So if it's been reduced by 20% or more, it's going to have this message of reduced effectiveness. If it's been increased by 20% or more, it's going to be amplified effectiveness. I've just changed this to more simplified language. That's also a little bit more connotatively neutral, because reduced is like, it can be good or bad. If it's something that's good that's being reduced, it's bad. If it's something that's bad being reduced, it's good. If that was followable. Amplified also felt a little bit more neutral in its connotation, because here's the thing. Damage can be reduced or amplified. One of those is good and one of those is bad, if it's happening to you, or positive if it's happening to the enemy. Healing also is going to be reduced or amplified by this system. So I just kind of wanted to be a little bit more neutral in the language and just have a little bit less variety in language up here. You're not really paying attention to what's happening up there anyway. It's a little bit hard to follow. So I simplified that language. This we talked about last time. This we talked about last time. This is with the bestiary allowing you to purchase things. And I talked about that. Here, I changed the rate at which TP charges. So, like, the default is, like, different. So if you take damage, each time you take damage, you get 3 TP plus 10 times the damage rate, then times your charge rate. This was just 50 times the damage rate times the charge rate, and that was giving you more TP when you get damage than I wanted. So I have adjusted this system so that way you get less TP overall when you take damage, although there's always a static amount that you are gaining. So if you take a small amount of damage, you get more relative TP, I suppose, with this system. But anyway, I've tweaked it down so that way you're not getting quite as much. Now we talk about another really big important update. So this right here gives the setup for sprite damage. So sprite damage is over here in RPG sprites, for anybody who is wondering. And this is the section that makes the little damage number pop-ups when you damage something. So I have added something to this to give effectiveness notifications. So you can see right here, create digits. I've added results.effectiveness to this, to these parameter lists. And create digits right here creates the digits for this. And I now have the effectiveness parameter. And if effectiveness is, there's some stuff that I've added here with some indexes for effectiveness. So if effectiveness is less than or equal to 0, then we use this index right here. It starts at like default -1, which basically means it doesn't do anything for the index. And then if your effectiveness was less than basically 2/3, we use this index. If it's less than 1, we use this index. If it's greater than 1 1/3, we use this index. And if it's greater than 1, then we use this index. I'll talk about what these are indexing into in a moment. And then this is the code that like makes the sub sprite, the child sprite, based on this effectiveness thing, and assigns its location and stuff. I had to do a bit of trial and error to get this to be in the proper location, but I eventually kind of got it there because it wasn't quite the same as this, which is a digit. I'll show you the image of what's going on, and it'll make more sense in a moment. I also had to change this so that way, because I added an additional row. Again, we'll see this in a moment. But this right here was just made to kind of fix a problem with how things worked. So let's talk about images here. This one? No, this one. Yeah, Resource Manager. So this is under System. I did add stuff to the balloon, by the way. I just can hit preview. This is my first attempt at doing stuff with the quest marker just to see what would work well. I made some serious tweaks to it later, like I added some color differentiation to this rotating part to make it feel like one part was back and one part was forward. And that helped a lot with making it read. I initially wanted to do it with a balloon, but the balloon had the problem of like it goes down. So if you constantly spam it, it has like a frame that it skips showing the balloon, and that wasn't great. So otherwise I'd have to like do some other timing thing. It wasn't great. So I switched to just using an event for that. But that's kind of off topic. So this is damage right here. And if I hit preview, you'll see there's a bunch of things here. So there's these are the digits for displaying damage and values and health gain values and stuff. And then there's the miss. So this was originally 5, it's now 6. That's what this bit right here was about. It's figuring out how tall each image should be, was dividing the total height of this picture over here that we're looking at, is dividing that total height by the number of rows it expected it to have. So when I added another row, I needed to add another thing. So you can see that I've added several things down here. This is index 0. This is immune. So if damage is less than or equal to 0, you get this one. If damage is less than 0.67, you get this reduced thing with 2 down arrows. If it's less than 1, but greater than or equal to 0.67, you'll get this reduced right here. That has the sort of yellow arrow, yellowish, orangish, ambiguous, but single arrow, so you can kind of know it's having an effect, but not as much of an effect. And then the white outline is consistent with stuff that's indicating decreased damage. Immune doesn't mean that it won't take any damage, by the way. If you have a plus modifier, that pluses it after it. And then we have amp, because amplified didn't fit. Neither did amplify. I have limited space to work with here. And it was a little bit tricky figuring out how to get these positioned correctly, because you'll notice these are a certain width and then these are like twice that width. So figuring out some of the math there required a little bit more work. But anyway, so if you have more than 1 damage, then you get this index. But if the damage is 1.33, greater than 1.33, then you get this one instead. So these are different ways of indicating, and they're a huge boon to sort of the combat system and making things readable. So there's all of these edits down here to make that work. So let's go ahead and load things up, and I should be able to demonstrate this. Let's use these guys. Yeah, these guys have just done that quest stuff. I was testing it on them. Unfortunately, I don't have any characters that haven't done the quest but also have the quest log, it would appear. So, problems of things being in development. I don't know. I should be able to find something here that I can... Okay, here's some rats. So these guys, let's just attack them and see what we get. So yeah, you can see the reduced icon pop up next to it. Reduced. That just missed. And there's very reduced, right? So if things were more effective against them, I don't remember offhand what's more... ice is. Ice would be more effective. So you can see that gets the amped next to it. So that's kind of what's going on there. If I wander around enough, I should be able to find an encounter with some slimes. I don't know, I've been using a lot of showmanship. But you can see that those icons pop up next to it. This makes it a lot easier to keep track of what's going on, because you don't want to be having to study that log to figure out what's doing well. And so this just gives you the information right there. And it works well, I think, and I'm quite happy with the system. Okay, that's a water ooze. I don't know if I have anything that deals water damage right now. Oh, I have Dousing Wave. Yeah, okay, let's do Dousing Wave. You know, let's just guard a really bad Dousing Wave. That interception doesn't really matter. Sure, Splash of Healing, why not? So this will allow me to be able to demonstrate the immune icon. Oh, you can see it was reduced on him as well. So, oh, it just missed? Well, that doesn't help. Well, I'm going to have to do that again. Guard, skills, Dousing Wave, guard. His magical accuracy is maybe not the best. Really? Yeah, it seems about right. They can't touch each other. Come on, game. I want to demonstrate things to the peoples. Yeah. There we go. That's the immune icon. So yeah, that gives you a general idea of what's going on. Okay, let's end this fight. Showmanship is a little bit better. Buzzkill. Reckless Bash this giant rat. Okay, we can also just get crit for super lethal. Yeah. Nobody has any fire. That's fine. Let's get Hannah back up here. This should probably just end it anyway. But this should give you a general idea of how Oh, it damaged itself for nothing because it's immune. So that's the that's that system. So now you've kind of seen how that works. It's a huge improvement. It did take a while to kind of hunt down through the chains of how everything goes to figure out how that worked and where it was. I wasn't surprised to find it in Sprite, and I potentially could have found it more quickly if I knew what I was looking for. But that's that. So is that kind of... Yeah, then there's the quest log. I talked about that. So, and the day-night cycle. Let's just talk about stuff over here, playtest notes. So, I did this. I thought about meaningful information regarding weaknesses and resistances. I simplified the thing, and I figured out putting pop-up numbers for effectiveness next to things, which is a huge benefit. I don't know. These things feel like they're probably fine. I did this. I did a bunch of icon changes. The Mystical Journal is now a different icon. So if we look at some of these items, actually, where's the Mystical Journal? I changed it to be this book icon. The Adventurers Guild card is now this icon, which I feel look kind of like an ID card. The Bestiary uses this icon. The quest log uses this icon. So I did some icon stuff. I did this. They are now in one menu instead of two. I can show you what that looks like, I suppose. That won't take long either. It's pretty straightforward, really. Where are you guys at? Okay, you're on the road here. And it becomes nighttime just as I enter, which is excellent. He doesn't actually have any to sell me. But you can see these are now just combined into one thing instead of being multiple things. That's all that's about. But I did that, so that's done. On damage info text, yes, this was we figured out that. That one I changed to. I just mentioned that as well. I adjusted the TP formula. I'm happy with that. Figure out if I can make... Yes, this is another really subtle thing, actually, that I did. See, this is why I'm going through the list of the things that I did, because it catches stuff that I forgot to mention. So there's a thing that you can do, and I did it up here. Right here. .perform attack. And I have a note. It's from RPG Object.js, line 4011. So if I sidle my tabs over enough, it's from over here. 4011. I think I could just use like a Control G to get there. You can see where we're at. Yeah, 4011. So it's right here. It's this perform attack. It's kind of where I took it from. But it requests the motion, the specific motion of like, is it a thrust, a swing, or a missile and stuff like that. So what this basically does, this is another thing that I can show in battle. Skills that are not attack. So let's get me a fight here. Get me a fight. Get me a heal too while we're at it. Okay, whatever. Everybody's healed up now. So if I attack something, it will perform an action with the thing. Now, ordinarily, what we would get is if I attacked something. So notice the spear goes forward with each one of those hits. And then the club swing, staff swing. That's just the normal attack staff swing. Now I've got two of them going on because that uses calc weapon damage. So this needs a little bit of tweaking to kind of work properly, but you get the idea of I wanted to add the attack swing for the motion performed. Otherwise, it's like it's a skill, so it uses these other animations. It still needs to be tweaked a bit, and I think I need to go a little bit deeper in terms of what I'm doing. So I'm just going to note that like that's done, but I'm going to just update this right here. Needs to go deeper. So this, like, what we saw there was, okay, this was a good test, but now that I was paying attention to it to kind of demonstrate what was going on, you kind of get the idea of this idea of adding it. Doesn't 100% work because it double performs the animation in one spot and then doesn't perform it when it should in another. But if you look at a character sheet, let's see, SV actors. This will work actually. Right here, there's a couple of different like animation bits. So there's like an idle animation, and there's like performing an act, like preparing to charge a spell and getting hit, punching, and some other like combat actions. This is dodging. So there's a couple of different like animations that they have here that play during combat, and so it will use this. Where was it? The like charge up animation and like some generic like performing an action animations for combat stuff. And I want it to have a different animation for using attack skills versus using skills that are not attack skills. So that is versus using skills that are spells and other things. But when they're specifically an attack skill and use your weapon, then they really ought to use that animation. So I kind of want to figure out setting it up to do that proper, like using weapon animation. I'm just going to add like a variant on this as well. Figure out a way to tag martial attacks to use the punching animation as well, rather than generic skill. So this is just one of those things where it's like, okay, I can ask it to do these things. If we looked at skills, right, there's the animation of like normal attack, but normal attack doesn't necessarily always feel like it does what I want properly. Because all this is doing is this is taking the animation of your weapon. So if you look at weapon, right here, it has the animation, so like physical slash, and it does not add in the animation of like swinging your weapon, which only happens with the default attack skill. So I just want to graft that into skills that use your weapon because I think that looks better. So like that's an in-process thing, and as we just saw, like I took a stab at it, it didn't quite work, and so it'll be a little bit of trial and error to get that working properly. And then just stuff that I noted from the playtest today. Sycamore, a town, needs to, so let's just talk about this properly. Whoops, goes this way. This is Sycamore right here. You can enter it from the north and from the side here, and if we go and looked at Sycamore, the map, you'll notice it does not accommodate for entering from the top or from like over here. So I just need to add some more like entering it from directions. I think I was doing this before I was being as thorough with like supporting directions of entry on the world map versus like in the locations as I am now. So I just kind of need to update that. Lady in the mercantile building courtyard is showing up at the wrong time of day. That's referring to mercantile courtyard up here. This lady is only supposed to show up at evening, and she's currently not showing up properly. So I just need to figure out what I need to tweak to get her to show up at the right time. Mushroom snakes felt... I had a fight with a mushroom snake. It was not as threatening as it felt like it should be. I need to check Fierce Thrust for stuff. The Dark Cave locale needs... I just needed to add a locale for dark caves that are like always dark and never basically ignore time of day. Mishizo's dexterity stat is probably too strong, and like she needs a little bit of a tweak. She's the ninja. She's probably too good. There's a bug with the quest with losing to the oozes made it work. This I fixed, so this should be I'm just going to mark this verify, but we saw me basically like fix that on screen. And then I want to add another additional way of doing a status screen because the one that's currently in the game just does not give enough information. I want to be able to give things like your evasion rate and your resistances to things. So I'm going to change up some stuff with a status screen. Is my plan. And I'm probably just going to add an additional menu item for like battle status or something. I don't know exactly. But I think that covers most of the stuff that I wanted to go over. So that should give you a good update on the things that have happened. I'm really excited about having added the support for quests. Now it's just a matter of actually making quests for the player to do and getting that good content in there. So if there's any questions, go ahead and leave them in the comments below. Hopefully I've remembered to link all the things that I need to link. But like I said, there's also the Astral Collision channel on my Discord server. So if you want, like, sometimes I post some information there, or post. It's not really post, it's chat, whatever, message, and other things. And if you just want questions about it, you can go there. And again, there's links in the description down below. So thank you all for watching. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up here. And until next time, take care, everyone. And goodbye.